Let's continue with implementing our movie information page. We're going to go below our genres container grid, and right here, we're going to write a typography that's going to be of a variant is equal to H5. It's also going to have a gutter bottom, and it's going to have an inline style of margin top, which is going to be set to 10 pixels. In there, we can simply say overview. Let's save it. And as you can see, our overview appeared right here. Now below this typography, we're going to have one more typography. So we can say typography. We're going to give it a style of margin bottom is to rem. And inside of there, we're simply going to render out the overview by saying data question mark dot overview. If we save that, you can see that we indeed do get an overview of this movie. Finally, we're going to have one last typography here, and that typography is going to be of a variant is equal to H5, and it's going to have a gutter bottom. This typography is simply going to say top cast. So right below this top cast, we're going to display all of the most popular actors that acted in this movie. For that, we can open up another grid. So right here, we can say grid. This grid is going to be of a type is equal to item and also a container. It's going to have a spacing equal to 2. Now inside of there, we want to loop over our cast. So we can say if data exists, meaning data, we can say end. In that case, data dot credits dot cast dot map. And again, it might be a good idea to simply add question marks here and here to be completely sure that these properties indeed do exist. Finally, our map is going to accept a callback function. And as parameters, we're going to get characters. So we can say character, and we're going to get the index we're looping over. Inside of there, we can show a grid for each specific cast member, and we can say key is equal to index. Also, a grid is going to be of a type item, XS4, meaning it's going to take 4 spaces on extra small devices and 2 spaces on medium devices. Also, our grid is going to be of a component is equal to link, because we actually want to re-navigate once somebody clicks on that item. And we need to have a to property. We can navigate to, that's going to be a template string, and we can say / actors / and then character dot ID. So we're going to actually navigate to a specific actor page. That's going to be a new page that we're going to implement. And finally, we can add an inline style that's going to say text decoration is going to be set to none. There we go. And the reason why I'm doing these inline styles is because it's just quicker. We have just one single thing we want to say, and we can do it right here in line. Now, inside of this grid, we can have an image first. So we can say img. In there, we're going to have a class name, which is going to be equal to classes.castImage. And finally, we need to render our image. So we can say source is equal to, that's going to be a template string, https image.tmdb.org/t/p/w500. Finally, character.profile_path. This is how TMDB gives us access to actor images. And finally, we can add the alternative tag, and here we can say character.name. There we go. Make sure to spell the character correctly. And already we should be able to see something. Let's see. Looks like we have an error saying cannot read property value of undefined on line 88. I don't see any specific value property, so I'm going to reload. And it says cannot read property value of null on line 88. Let's try to find what that issue means. I'm going to open up the console. In here, we have an error Still the same thing, error linting line 88 cannot read property value of null occurred while linting. That's definitely a special error. Okay, let's try to remove these question marks. So just use dots. This is the first time that I've encountered this. There was some issue with the linting and the question marks, so it caused the error. But if we simply get rid of that, the error is going to be fixed. So now, if we open this up, there we go. You can see the cast images, but right now they're not styled. So let's go ahead and implement the cast image styles. To do that, we can go to our styles, and just below our links, we can implement the cast image class. So right here, we can say width is going to be set to 100%. We're going to have the max width as well, which is going to be set to 7 EM. Also height, which we can set to 8 EM. Again, these are just some values that I found to be working the best. You can use pixels, EM, rem, whatever you want. Also, we need to set the object fit to be equal to cover to fit the entire image. And we can add a border radius to be equal to 10 pixels. And if we save that, you can see we get all of our great actors. But as you can see, some of the actors don't have images, which is not convenient. And also there are quite a lot of them. So we always want to show just a few. How can we do that? Well, let's say that we only want to show the actors that have the image. So right here, where we're looping over it, we can say if character dot profile underscore path. And then we can say and end. This means that we're only going to show this grid if the character.profile path exists. And there we go. Now we get only the actors that have a profile image. Of course, below the image, let's also add their name. So we can say a typography. That typography is going to be of a color is text primary. And inside of there, we can simply say character question mark dot name. If we save that, we should be able to see a name for all of them. Also, we want to show which characters did they play in that specific movie. So we can again write a typography. The color is going to be set to text secondary. And then inside of that typography, we can say character dot character. So it's actually 2 times in and then dot split. We can split it by a / because that's how we're going to get the character they played. And then we can only take the first character they played by saying array 0. Now, if we save that, we should be able to see which characters they played. Ryan Reynolds played Guy in Free Guy. Great. So now you can see there is a lot of actors and we don't want to show all of them. So what we can do is call the dot slice method on this array. We can do it right here after our second parenthesis by saying dot slice 0 and then 6. Let's only show the first 6 most important ones. There we go. Usually people who look into the cast are only concerned with the top actors in that specific movie, so I think 6 is going to be enough. And with that, we are successfully rendering our cast. Our next step is going to be to add movies, to open up the trailer, to go to the homepage of that specific movie, to go back to all movies, and adding buttons to favorite the movie or add it to the wish list. So right below this grid, we're going to have one more grid. This grid is going to be again of a type item and type container, and it's going to have a style, which is going to be set to margin top to rem, like this. Inside of it, we're going to have a div, and this div is going to have a class name set to classes dot buttons container. Great. Inside of that div, we're going to have one more grid. This grid is going to be of a type item. It's going to say XS is equal to 12, meaning this grid is going to take the full width of the device on mobile devices. And SM, that means everything larger than the small, is going to be set to 6. We're also going to give it the same class name, which is going to be buttons container, so we can copy that. Okay, now that we've added this class name, let's see what goes inside of this grid. Inside of here, we can use something for the first time, not a button, but rather it's going to be a button group. That's like a div to contain multiple different buttons. And we're going to set the size to be set to small. Also, we can set the variant to be equal to outlined. Now, inside of there, we can of course show different buttons. So our first button is going to have a target equal to underscore blank to open in a new page. It's going to have the rel equal to no opener and no referrer. These things are usually used whenever you have a target blank for security reasons. This button is going to have an href, which is going to be equal to data dot homepage. And finally, we're going to have the end icon, which is in this case going to be set to simply a component called language. That is going to be our icon. And that button is simply going to say website. So right here, we can type website. I know we wrote a lot of code here, but if we now click it or save it, we can only see one button. But we've prepared our containers to add more buttons, but right now we can only see the website. And that's a fun fact, by the way. I didn't know that every movie has its own website. So if we click it, we should be redirected to 20th Century Studios, and right here we can see some more information about the movie. Now let's add other buttons. To add other buttons, I'm simply going to duplicate this one. The target is going to remain the same, rel also. This href is going to be a template string, and we can say https://www.imdb.com/title/ and then in here we can say data .imdb_id. So this is going to be a link pointing to the IMDb page of that specific movie. And then for the end icon, we can say movie icon. And in here, we can simply say IMDb. Now, if we save that, you can see that we get a second button right next to this one that says IMDb. And if we click it, as you can see, we are redirected to the free guy on IMDb. Finally, let's add our third button. So our third button here is going to be our trailer button. So we can say button, and we're going to give it an on-click property. We want to do something on click. Right now, we're going to leave that as an empty callback function. And we're going to add an href to it, which is going to be set to just hash or pound symbol, because we don't want to do anything. We don't want to go anywhere. We simply want to start up our trailer. We can also give it an end icon. So we can say end icon is going to be equal to something like theaters. That is the icon that we imported. And right here, we can say trailer. If we save that, you can see our third button. And right now, it's not doing anything, but we're going to implement that functionality soon enough. But now, let's finish up the other three buttons. And yes, you've heard that correctly, there are three more. So what we can do is simply copy this entire grid below, so we can duplicate it. And it's going to be the same. The grid item XS12 SM6 buttons container, that's going to be the same. This button group is also going to be the same, but the only thing we have to change are the buttons inside of it. So we can basically delete all of these buttons and we can create three new ones. Our first button is going to have an on-click property, and on-click, we simply want to add to favorites. So right now, we can even create that function right away, add to favorites. Of course, we haven't yet created this function, so let's scroll up. And right here at the top, I'm going to create a new function, const add to favorites. And that's going to be a basing function, and we can duplicate it one more time to add one more, which is going to be add to watch list. Great. So now we can scroll down and continue adding our button. Of course, it's not going to be a self-closing tag, but rather right next to our on click, we're going to show the end icon, but our end icon is going to be different. We have to have a variable called something like isMovieFavorited. So for now, I'm going to create a dummy variable here, const isMovieFavorited, and that's going to be set to true at the start. Again, make sure to spell this correctly, favorited. There we go. And also we have to have the same one for isMovieWatchlisted. Great. So now that we have this variable, we can show a different icon depending on that variable. Under end icon, we can say isMovieFavorited. If it is, then show favorite border outlined icon, else show favorite icon. So now if we save that, you should be able to see that there is a little heart here, but of course we can add something inside of that button. So let's open it up, and it's not going to say IMDb. Rather, if we fix this up, it should contain a button right here, and we're going to again use the isMovieFavorited variable. If it is, then we're going to say unfavorite. But if it's not, we're simply going to say favorite. Great. So now if we save that, you can see right now it says unfavorite because we have the variable currently set to favorited. But if we go to the top and right here, we can switch that to false. You can see that right now it's going to say favorite. Great. So now we can go to our second button, which is going to be our watch list button. And for that, we can basically copy this one. So let's go ahead and copy it. It's going to say add to watch list. And the icons are going to be just a bit different. So if is movie watch listed, in that case, we want to show remove icon. Else we want to show +1 icon. And then in here, we can simply say if is movie watch listed, we can simply say remove from watch list. And if it's not, we can say something like add to watch list. Let's check it out. There we go, add to watch list. Right now, I'm just going to always say just watch list here because this is getting really long for a button. That way, we're going to say watch list, but the +1 or -1 is going to change. So that's going to be enough information for people to know if the movie has been already watch listed. And we have to add our last button. So we can say button. That button is going to have the end icon equal to arrow back. And I think you can already assume what that button is doing. It's also going to have the SX, which is going to be equal to an object, where we're going to change the border color to be equal to primary.main. This XS property is a new thing from Material UI, and it basically allows us to add inline styles, the same we've been doing somewhere around here, but you can use their own theme colors. And inside of this button, we're going to have a typography. That typography is going to be of a component is equal to link, and it's going to point to just slash because we want to go back. It's going to have a color equal to inherit. And finally, it's going to be of a variant subtitle 2. And the only thing it's going to say is going to be simply back. Great, you can see that we have this right here. And it looks like that we have to remove this ugly underline from the text. So right here, we can say text underline is going to be a string of none. Let's see if that does it. Unfortunately, it didn't because we have to remove it from the typography. So I'm going to copy this. And we need to add inline styles to this typography by saying text underline is going to be set to none. Let's see. This also didn't fix it. This one is really stubborn, and that's because we are actually using a component link, which is then causing us to have that underline. We'll figure that out later on. But for now, keep in mind that we have to add the class name, and right inside of here, below the cast image, we can add our buttons container, and that's going to be equal to display flex. Also, justify content is going to be space dash between. The width is going to be set to 100%. And finally, on mobile devices, so we can say theme dot breakpoints, or we can just copy this part. On mobile devices, our flex direction is going to be set to column because we want to show the buttons one below another. There we go. As you can see on our desktop devices, they're all stacked in a row nicely. But on our mobile devices, if we do it like this, you can see they stack one below another. Great. We can also now see the overview, the top cast, and the buttons all look great on mobile devices. Great. Now, I've also opened the already finished version of the entire project to see what's going to happen here. And let's see if we have some differences. First of all, I can notice that if we extend this, everything looks great, but we don't have the underline here. So we need to remove the underline from our site right here. And also we don't have the underline under our button. Also, the buttons seem to be a bit larger. So let's go back to the movie information and let's change the size to medium. There we go. That looks a bit better. And then finally, we have to remove the underline from here and underline from our back button. So how can we do that? Let's start with our genres. So our genres are right inside of here. That's going to be a typography that's going to display the genre name. So let's try adding an inline style here, which is going to say text underline is going to be set to none. If we do that, unfortunately, this still hasn't been deleted and the issue is the same as before. That's because we have this link right here. So what if we take this text underline none? And what if we check the classes for our links? Right here, we don't have the text underline. So let's say text. Oh, it shouldn't be text underline. It should be text decoration. I've been writing that wrong the whole time. See, it happens. I've been thinking of the underline, but rather that's the text decoration, which can be set to underline. Unfortunately, I've been typing that wrong for this whole time, but basically it's just text decoration and then set that to none, and there we go. Now we have to do a similar thing for our back button. So if we go to our movie information component, scroll down to our link right here, let's simply try adding a style, which is going to say text decoration is set to none. And there we go, that deleted it. Now this is looking as it is on the final product. Take a look. If I switch between those, there aren't basically any differences. Finally, we can notice that this finished product has the "You might also like" section. This is a really important section where we get the movie recommendations based off of this movie. So that's going to be a feature that we're going to implement in the next lecture. Let's go ahead and do that right now.